Are you a real villain?
Well, technically, nah.
Have you ever
twisted the dimensions and ruined your opponent's state?
Nah. Have you ever
Clicked expanding force?
Nah.
All right. I can see that I will have to teach you how to be villains.
Hello! I am Progatog, complicated music enthusiast and lover of twisting the dimensions. I've had a lot of people come to me over time asking for help both building and piloting Trick Room. In my team review videos, I go over these things through the lens of a specific team, but I felt a series going over these topics more broadly would be fun to produce and hopefully a useful learning tool. In this series of videos, I plan to go over specific topics about Trick Room, such as speed tiers, picking the right setters and support, and playing around particularly difficult situations. In this video, I wanted to go over two of the most basic applicable things every Trick Room pilot should know. When to use and when not to use Trick Room. And ways to protect your setter or get Trick Room up. In many players' minds, both the people who play Trick Room and people who live boring lives, it is imperative that you set up Trick Room as fast as possible to have any sort of game plan, or else you are a sitting duck. And while this is sometimes the case, it is far from always. When you lead with a typical follow me Trick Room lead, such as in DD Armourouge or Mouse Holded for Ridgeraft, sometimes you'll get a good opportunity to nab a KO and not worry about having Trick Room up on the following turn. If your opponent has their own Trick Room suitable Pokemon in the back, they may even be counting on you to set up Trick Room so that their Torkoal, Blood Moon, or Tinglu can countersweep you. Sometimes you will have games where you're just straight up faster, or can take control early on with the fast backup options such as Scarf or Shifu, Cornerstone Ogerpon, or Hisui and Lilligant. A common trap players find themselves in with these tools is to consider them mostly backup options and focus still on that turn 1 Trick Room. While these are just two noteworthy examples, different teams will have different non-Trick Room turn 1 plays, and what is optimal to do when will depend heavily on your team's composition and your opponent's team as well, of course. In my video guides, I go over some of these lines of reasoning on a case-by-case basis, and many other prominent Trick Room players will usually break down these in their guides as well. Successfully getting Trick Room set up is only step 1 of the path to victory. You will also need to reduce your opponent's HP to 0. Even when their speedy paradoxes and scarf-wearing lava fish are going second, most players are going to have some sort of game plan to get through the 4 turns in Wonderland. Sometimes this plan can be detailed into their team building, and sometimes it will be patched together on the fly. Here are some of the most common tactics you will see to fight Trick Room, either to stop it from going up or to deal with it after. Strong priority moves have always been one of the premier ways to stop Trick Room from going up, and also prevent the Trick Room player from running away with the game. Pokemon like Incineroar, Iron Hands, Grimmsnarl, or Rillaboom will threaten your setters and other supports with Fake Out. While powerful priority sweepers such as Shenpao, Dragonite, and Entei are capable of clearing your team regardless of speed tiers. Luckily for Trick Room players, there are 2 staple Pokemon that deal with priority and also fit perfectly on Trick Room. Indeedee and for Ridgeraft. These days, Melvin is seen as the anti-priority Pokemon of choice, but even if you are not dedicated to Psy Spam, Indeedee still brings other offerings such as Follow Me, Heal Pulse, and the ability to stop even Mold Breaker Fakeouts. There's not a lot of that going around, but at the time of writing, I've seen a surprise amount of people claim that Tinkaton is suddenly going to be viable. One of the least creative but most viable ways to survive Trick Room is to spam Protect on your Pokemon in hopes that you'll outlast the Twisted Dimensions. Your opponents are going to hope that by pacing their Protects, alongside possible attacks from their bulky Pokemon, they will get back to a point where their Glass Cannons will be attacking first and nabbing KOs. It is important to have a game plan for this, or at least be aware of some of the more agnostic ways to handle Protect stalling. One popular way of handling Protect stalling is planning to use these turns for crucial switches or setting up. Pokemon like King Gambit and Raging Bolt can set up Swords Dance or Calm Mind while your opponent uses Protect. And since they have strong priority moves in Sucker Punch and Thunderclap, they can continue to sweep after Trick Room goes down. A more niche but very powerful way of handling Protect Stall is the seldom seen low speeder Shifu. Some prominent Trick Room players such as Cortex and Brian Collins have even used items such as Power Bracer to make Urshifu the slowest, and thus fastest, thing on the field. Urshifu ignores Protect with its ability Unseen Fist, and this allows it to suit the needs of the team to make stalling out Trick Room much more difficult. The teams that have used Urshifu usually pair it with Oranguru for the combination of Instruct and Wicked Blow. If Power Band feels awkward to use on Kung Fu Bear, some teams have also opted to run Max HP, Max Attack with Choice Band. As under Trick Room, this setup will outpace most of your typical fast mons such as Flutter Mane and Ogerpon. The last method for dealing with Protect is one that requires a bit of reading and guesswork, but is devastating for your opponent if pulled off. If your opponent follows a predictable pattern of double protecting during Trick Room, you can take advantage of this by using a Protect turn to use Trick Room twice if your team can support it. The first use will turn it off, and the second one will turn it back on with 4 more turns to use. Since the first turn of this new Trick Room will be one that Protect can fail, it is much easier to pick off your opponents from here. Ultimately, when making predicts around opponents' protection moves, it is generally more advisable to make the play that contains less blowback if you are wrong. For example, if you assume an opponent will protect and opt to switch, you may find yourself eating a Moonblast with your freshly switched in Ursaluna. If you expect them to attack, and they protect, the downside is simply not doing damage. Over time, you will get a good feel for when your opponent will protect or when they will take the risk of attacking. Some Pokemon with speed stats that are appropriate for Trick Room are actually more often used in an anti-Trick Room role. Notable examples include Amoonguss, Torkoal, and Ting-Lu. These Pokemon all tend to be disruptive to Trick Room, or have viable uses outside of Trick Room teams while also being slow enough to cause problems for them. Amoonguss outslows every prominent Trick Room sweeper except for Torkoal and Hatterene. The Imposter Shroom creates havoc for hard Trick Room by putting our sweepers to sleep with Spore, or by pulling attacks away with Rage Powder so its partner can take out our Pokemon even while going last. Amoonguss is easily one of the most frustrating Pokemon for Trick Room players to face, and all teams should have an option to deal with it. Using Grass-type sweepers or Pokemon with Grass Tyras will bolster your team's immunity to Spore. This can extend to Pokemon that are not your slow Trick Room pieces either. There's been success using Pokemon with Follow Me and Safety Goggles, such as Mouseholder and Didi, and I personally am a big fan of Cornerstone Ogerpon in this role, due to getting the benefits of both Sturdy as a Focus Sash, and the Spore immunity of being a Grass type. Having your own Torkoal can help hose Amoonguss, but many run Water Terror at this time for this reason and others. If playing a Size Spam variant of Trick Room, Hatterene is advisable if your team does not have other strong answers for Amoonguss, as her Magic Bounce ability makes her immune to Spore. Torkoal is still sometimes used to set up stun on weather teams that do not rely on Trick Room. These teams will often keep their Torkoal handy for the Trick Room matchup, as it will be able to outspeed everything you throw at it with Yawn and Overheat. Many non-Trick Room Torkoals do not run Eruption, but in closed cheat it's important to exercise caution here. Torkoal can be dealt with best by trying to trap it on the field without Trick Room up, or by using Pokemon that can withstand its hard-hitting fire stabs, such as a Dragon or Fire Terror Pokemon with Assault Vest. Armor Rouge's ability to handle Torkoal so well with its Flash Fire is why I'm still a big fan of it on Trick Room teams. Ting-Lu had practically disappeared during Regulation D&D, but with Landorus Therian falling by the wayside in favor of Incineroar, Ting-Lu has been on the rise. Unlike Torkoal and Amoonguss, Ting-Lu has potential to outslow our team and apply incredible offensive pressure while doing so. Vessel of Ruin coupled with Ting-Lu usually running Assault Vest makes it hard to use Hatterene or Torkoal to deal with it as well. While tricky to handle, Ting-Lu can be dealt with by opting to not use Trick Room at all, and outspeeding with mons like Gallade or Urshifu when it hits the field. Usually Ting-Lu is the slowest member on a bulky team featuring Porygon 2, and it's there to play well with Porygon's Trick Room while also countering more traditional hard Trick Room teams. Ursaluna can also give Ting-Lu issues, as they don't always opt for the lowest possible speed. Imprison is often seen as a good catch-all for Trick Room teams. In closed sheet games, this can definitely be the case, whether it be on the in-game ladder or on Showdown. You can do your best to play around it in these environments, but it can be difficult to predict regardless. In open team sheet formats, you can use the knowledge shown to your advantage. If a Pokemon is threatening Imprison, You can play around it by focusing offensive pressure onto that Pokemon to take it out, or play a game plan that is less reliant on Trick Room overall. Many Trick Room teams will carry at least one fast Pokemon to be disruptive to Imprison and other strategies. We have seen the likes of Taunt Scarfer Shifu, Jolly Cornerstone Ogerpon, or a backup fast mode such as Lilligant to provide Sleep Powder support. Into Imprison users that are more frail, such as Fluttermane, you can also just opt to target the Pokemon with a move that should OHKO before your partner attempts to use Trick Room. Lastly, when a Pokemon uses Imprison, you can always go for the Topo Wapo special and Whirlwind or Roar the issue away.
Wow! That was pretty brutal even by my standards!
No backsies!
Taunt is one of the softest but most common answers to Trick Room shenanigans. While most teams carry simple answers to Taunt already, I felt it was worth covering this quickly. Most Taunt users in the format are prankster Pokemon such as Tornadus or Whimsicott, so your average Trick Room team is already carrying the most common answer in the form of Priority Denial, usually using Indeedee or Farigiraf. For other Taunters, such as Incineroar or Mousehold, it is important to utilize our Follow Me supports to their fullest potential. Mental Herb used to be a common answer for Taunt, but I'd only consider this on Trick Room setters that don't usually need other defensive or utility items, such as Mimikyu or Oranguru. That concludes the introductory lesson to Trick Room School. This video has been in the making for quite a while, and I really hope it can help expand your force and your knowledge of the archetype. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.